High in the mountains of northern New Mexico, between Santa Fe and Taos, lies a most unique land. These are the villages held in the embrace of La Jicarita Mountain, small enclaves settled by Pueblo Indians and Spanish and Mexican explorers centuries ago. Today, the descendants of settlers, explorers, and indigenous people of southern Taos County live here in harmony with the traditions and customs passed down from generation to generation. A proud people whose roots are deep in the land they love and have a foothold in both the modern world and the history of their rich culture and heritage. These are the people of the Rio Lucio, Chamasal, and many other small villages surrounding Peñasco, New Mexico.
I'm just going to give you a general introduction of who I am because some of you know me and some of you don't. Maybe some of you don't want to know me. You know, my family comes from Llano and, of course, Trampas and so forth. A little bit about me, I've been retired 11 years. I work for the U.S. Department of Interior as a federal regional telecom officer for the Interior. I retired 11 years ago, okay? I'm not trying to build myself up. I'm just telling you who I am, okay? And I started Genealogy in 1990. I worked with a couple of great people, George Martinez from Denver and Alberto Velarde from Taos. We worked together in 1990. Alberto's done a lot of work. George did too, and I've done some, okay? I'm not as good at them as them, but I've done some work. I primarily work on Las Trampas. I'm dedicated to Los Tramperos, okay? And I'm not just talking about Los Tramperos from the past, I'm talking about the Los Tramperos from the present, because sometimes we tend to forget that the Tramperos from the present are doing the work that the Tramperos from the past did, okay? And we tend to forget that. We always look at the 12 families, and just because they're not Lopez, Vigils, or whatever, or Romeros, doesn't mean that they're not Tramperos. They still are, okay? I'm going to touch basically on the Las Trampas. Not, okay, first of all, I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Miguel said, okay? I have a real good friend that Miguel worked with, Angel Cervantes, who's in charge of the DNA project for New Mexico in Albuquerque. He talked, I've known him since 2004, 2005. In 2006, he talked me into doing my DNA. What do I look like? What do I look like? Okay, Native American, Mexican, New Mexican, Arabic, okay? When I used to travel for the U.S. Department of Interior to Washington, D.C. in the 70s, they'd look at me and say, "Are you Arabic?" And I go, "No." Because there wasn't a lot of influx of Mexican and New Mexican back in Virginia at that time. So they thought I was Arabic. I used to travel to Alaska. They used to think I was Aleut Eskimo. Everywhere I went, I was at whatever was in that particular part of the territory, okay? And I'm doing this for a purpose. When I did my DNA, I was very, very shocked, okay? When Angel Cervantes called me, he said, "Jerol, you know what? What? Out of 200 and some people that did their DNA, 7 people came out Sephardic Jew. And guess who's one of them? You." Do I look Jewish? No. See, we never can look at somebody, identify who they are or what they are, because we don't know, okay? We don't know. And I just wanted to kind of throw that in. Well, you know, the Tramperos, I kind of touched a little bit about about the DNA and so forth about me. But I want to go with when I did my presentation last year, I started with way back with Cortez, Coronado, Onate, and all that. I'm going to cut that. Okay, I'm going to start with, where do these people come from? Okay, Where do these, I mentioned the Jewish part, okay? I'm going to touch just a little bit about the Jewish part. And I'm going to turn this way. Like I mentioned, I joined the New Mexico DNA Project in 2006. I came out as Jewish. Angel was so happy. I don't know why the guy jumped like, because his wife was from Russia, and they did her dad's DNA, and we matched. That it was, and he said, Jerol, you're kind of an odd guy. I am? Yeah. You matched with this Russian guy, so somehow the two brothers split. One went to Spain, one went to Russia. Really unique. If you ever hear, listen to Angel Cervantes' in Albuquerque speeches on DNA, he'll probably throw my name in once in a while. I give him permission. But anyway, I'm not going to go into what the Sephardic Jew, which the Spanish Jew is, okay? And how did they get here? Well, in 1492, when King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella said, okay, if you're not, okay, now, before I even do this, I'm not here to downgrade any religion or person or anything. I'm doing facts, okay? So don't take things personal when I bring things up. I'm just giving you facts and information that I've compiled, okay? So don't, if you get offended, I'm over there by that picture, come and see me, all right? But anyway, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella said, okay, if you're not Catholic, you either have to convert to Catholicism or you're going to have to leave, okay? So guess what my family did? They left. On the Jewish side, okay? They left, changed their name from whatever Jewish family name they had to Arguello. I have no idea where they picked it up. Probably, who knows? So they ended up in Spain, and then from Spain, and I'm gonna go really quick to this. Okay, I kind of mentioned the Jewish side. You know the Arguellos through DNA. Me is Sephardic Jew. Not only did they do one test on me, they did 3 tests. Backbone, a bunch to prove that I was Jewish. You know, they did quite a few tests. So it's not just like they did one test and you're Jewish. They did quite a few. All right. So we have the Jewish at Las Trampas. Okay. The Arguellos married a lot of people. Leibas, Romeros, they got a little bit of Jewish in them. Okay. Now it doesn't mean that Jerol practiced Judaism, because I don't. Like Miguel said, just because your DNA says you're this doesn't mean that you're going to be practicing that. Okay, I'm going to go into the Uganda, Angola, Africa family. Okay, now we touched on the Jewish. We're going to go to the African side. Okay, now as we all know, if you read any history, you know this. The Portuguese and the Spanish were doing okay, it's realistic. They were getting slaves from Africa, bringing them over for work and whatever they needed to do, you know. I'm not going to go into that. But, and I'm not going to touch too much on this. But this family, which is Manuel Rodriguez and Maria Fernandez, I traced them back to this little port here. And how did they do that? Well, the Spanish records indicated where they came from. Okay? And they did this through their son, Sebastián Rodriguez, who's a drummer for Vargas. Okay? If you know any history about Vargas, he had a drummer, and his name was Sebastián Rodriguez. Sebastián Rodriguez was the son of Manuel Rodriguez and Maria Fernandez. Okay, they were given the names. They got rid of their African names. They were given Spanish names. Okay, because they were servants. Okay, we all know that. If you know any history, if not, raise your hand after a while and ask me any question you want. Anyway, found them all the way to this little port. This is where they picked them up from. Okay, now I just mentioned about Sebastián Rodriguez. Okay, Sebastián had a son. Guess who his son was? His son was Melchor Rodriguez, who's one of the Tramperos, okay? All right? Now, we've identified the Jewish side, we've identified the African American side, okay? Doesn't mean that every Rodriguez that's here is from Africa, because some Rodriguez's may came from some other places, etc., etc. So don't get that in your head saying just because they're Rodriguez from Trampas mean they're no. Like Miguel said, people came from different times and different locations, and doesn't mean that they come from this Rodriguez family. I'm just telling you, this Melchor Rodriguez and his brother Eusebio were Tramperos, okay? And their grandparents were African American, okay? I'm going to touch on the Conquest of Mexico, because I want to go into the Tlaxcaltec Indians that we're part of, okay? When Cortez went into New Spain, which is not currently Mexico, when he went in, the first Indian tribe, first of all, let me go back up. The Tlaxcaltec and the Aztecs are the same family. They just split apart, okay? So when I say Tlaxcaltec, it's still part of the Aztec family. They just became their own separate tribe. When Cortez came across into New Spain, which is Mexico now, the first Indians he ran into were the Tlaxcaltec Indians, and they fought. Okay, you have to realize that the Tlaxcaltecs had never seen anybody on a horse or with shining armor or spears with autobus, weapons. Everything was done with bows and arrows and clubs and heaven knows what else. But when they saw these people, the conquistadors with Cortez, they kind of threw them off. They kind of went, wow, what's going on here? But anyway, Cortez ran into the Tlaxcaltec Indians. They fought these battles, okay? Here's Cortez coming in with his horse, and there's the Indians kind of looking, trying to figure out who they are. Well, this Tlaxcaltec family, this group right here is part of the Tramperos too, okay? That's where I got my dark skin from, who knows? Now, I'm just kind of going to go into a little bit about the Tlaxcaltecs. They were hierarchical people. They had their own scenario of kings and so forth. And I'm not going to go into that because it'll take too long. Tlaxcaltec this is in Mexico, and it's right here, okay? Right, that part. As Cortez came in with his soldiers, they fought battles, and finally they became friends. Because the Tlaxcaltecs couldn't defeat them because they had a lot of swords and metal and stuff that they couldn't fight with. So they became buddies. So the Tlaxcaltecs and Cortez bound together as friends. And Cortez wanted to continue on to conquer Mexico. So he made friends with them. And he said, okay, where do I go from here? Well, the Aztecs were just down the road, and the Tlaxcaltecs said, they're our enemies, help us defeat them. So everybody thinks that Cortez with his army are the only ones that went in and defeated the Aztecs. They didn't. They had thousands of Tlaxcaltec warriors going in with them to help them, okay? Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of the Tlaxcaltec stuff and so forth. I'm just going to show you some pictures that show the Spanish soldiers with Moctezuma. The unfortunate thing is the Spanish soldiers, they kind of treated the Indians as lower class. Of course, it's always been that way. But they admired their sculptures and all the things that they did, because they were very, very unique in the things they did. Now, this is just another map that shows where Cortez came in and just started going in and conquering this whole area, okay? Now, okay, so you have, I'm trying to build a picture here. You have Jewish families. They're going into New Spain or Mexico. You have the African Americans families that came into New Mexico, and now you have these Tlaxcaltecs that are coming in. They came in with Onate. When Onate came in 1598, if you read any of your history, it says they came with Indian servants, warriors, and so forth, and they were the Tlaxcaltecs. There's been a big dispute whether they're Tlaxcaltec or not, but if they came from Mexico, it had to have been them, because either them or the Aztecs, Well, they came into New Mexico, okay? Now, how do they connect with the Tramperos? Well, my grandfather, Juan de Arguello, married a Juana Gregoria Brito, wife of, and her dad was a Tlaxcaltec Indian. How many have been to Santa Fe and have seen the San Miguel Church? That was built by Tlaxcaltec Indians, okay? The Brito family were bricklayers, and they were known to have been building churches and buildings, so they built that church. And now you have these three dominant, other than the Spanish families that came in too, okay, and the Trampas. You have those groups, all right? And they're living in Santa Fe, okay? They came in. How did they get to Santa Fe? Well, like Miguel mentioned, they came with Vargas. Well, first they came in 1598 with Onate, and then when they were chased back, like Miguel mentioned, they were chased back to Juarez, and then in 1680 during the revolt, okay? And I'm going to touch a little bit on the revolt here. Let's see if I can get over here. Those are just pictures. I'm going to go a little quicker here. These are just maps showing how the Spanish settlements went and so forth. Okay, I'm going to touch on this before I go any further. The Pueblo Indians. And I'm going to touch on the 1680 revolt. We know the Jewish came in. We know the African American, the Tlaxcaltec, to a certain point. Well, how are we connected to the Pueblo? Well, in 1680, read your historical documents in reference to 1680 revolt. What happened was the Tiwa Indians, along with all the Pueblo Indians, chased the Spanish out of here and sent them back to Juarez, okay? And then the Vargas came in 1692 and to reconquer New Mexico, and he started recolonizing New Mexico, okay? Okay, but during the 1680 revolt, there was a family, a daughter that was captured, okay? Juana de Leyva was captured by the Pueblo Indians, okay? And her sister, okay? They were captured during the 1680 revolt, okay? Let me go back one more. There's a revolt, sorry. Okay. So there was some people that were killed in this Leyva family, which was Jose de Leyva de Neva and his one daughter were killed by the Pueblo Indians during the revolt. Two of the daughters, Juana de Leyva, 18 years old, and her younger sister, Angela de Leyva, were captured by the Pueblo Indians. Possibly from Jalisco. Is Lorraine Aguilar here? Lorraine was going to be here. She knows a little about this too. In 1692, when Vargas reconquered New Mexico, Holguin Fresca, this Holguin man, the grandfather on the maternal side, went looking for them, and he found them at San Juan Pueblo, okay? Now, when he found them, this Juana de Leyva had two sons, Jose de Leyva, and I can't remember the other son's name, but anyway, Juan de Leyva, I'm sorry. But anyway, I believe, this is me, and I'm going to tell you why. A lot of the Leyvas from Colorado that come from Trampas have done their DNA. Angel Cervantes called me and said, Jerol, you know, there's a bunch of those guys that are coming Q1. And I go, what's Q1? He said, Native American. And I go, and he goes, wow, what's going on here? And I go, well, I pointed to this. I told him, because when I did the genealogy on the Leyva family, it all went to this Jose de Leyva, okay? And the research by Kessel Hendricks and Dodge in the Royal Crown, he pretty much mentioned in his book that this Juana de Leyva had a son, Juan de Leyva and Jose de Leyva, age 9 and 8. So he indicated that she was in Santa Fe, she had two boys, okay? To kind of confirm that this lady did have two boys, okay? Confirmation pretty much is what it is. Okay. So this Juana de Leyva had two boys. Jose de Leyva is the father of Francisco de Leyva, who's one of the Tramperos, okay? So that's the Pueblo side. That's how the Native American on the male side is connected. Remember Miguel, I always get Angel and Miguel mixed up. Remember, Miguel said that the Y chromosome male all the way through, okay? It's not going to dispute. If one of you males do your DNA, it's going to follow your dad, your grandpa, and so forth down the line. Well, that's what happened here. When you have these labels doing their DNA, and it's coming Q1, well, it goes back to this Pueblo Indian, okay? So we've identified the Jewish, the African American, the Tlaxcaltec, and the Pueblo, okay? And of course the Spanish too, because there's Spanish in between there. So those are a lot of the families that are from Trampas. I'm going to say this again. Just because you're Rodriguez, don't say, man, I'm African. No. Like Miguel said, do your DNA. Angel Cervantes taught me this. If you're going to do your genealogy, Jerol, tell the people this. Before you start writing, do your DNA. And here's why. I had a friend who was Romero from down by, I think he was down by Pecos. He's been doing his DNA for 20 years. I mean, his genealogy for 20 years. He did his DNA and it came out Aragon. So he traced it back. Angel said, go back and see who's your neighbors or who what. Well, sure enough, years back there was an Aragon that was a neighbor. And it happens. It happens, okay? Come on, we have to be realistic. So if and this is for all you people who want to do your DNA, you're doing your genealogy, do your DNA first. Because Angel and Miguel have this database of these people that have already done their DNA. And if you match, you are Romero. If you don't, you got to check your genealogy chart, okay? Because it's very, whether we like it or not, and I know in my grandpa Tiburcio, he said, I don't believe in DNA. I know I'm Espanol. I don't care what you say, Jerol. But anyway, now the new generation of DNA will help you. So if you're doing your genealogy, do your DNA. And when you do your DNA, start out with the New Mexico Project with Miguel or Angel Cervantes in Albuquerque. It'll save you a lot of headaches. Because if you spend years doing your genealogy chart or getting it off somebody, if you pick it up from somebody and you say, oh, this is mine, you don't even know if it's verified, but you're just going to use it, and you do your DNA, it doesn't match, then you're going to say, man, I wasted all that time. Do your DNA, okay? Now, I'm going to touch a little bit about the land grant. We've identified where these people have come from, and Jerol, whether you like it or not, has some Jewish in him, and some Tlaxcaltec, and some African American, because I have a grandma that was a Rodriguez. See, you got to realize, Trampas wasn't that big of a place. So when they had kids, they intermarried, okay? So you got to realize the Leibas married the Arguellos, the Rodriguezes married the Arguellos, and the Garcias, Luceros. We all got intermarried. So with that intermarriage, you carried along what? The African American, the Jewish, you carried those parts of you, okay? So whether we like it or not, we have all of that inside of us, okay? So I always tell my wife this. I kid her. I'm putting my Jewish hat on. I can't eat bacon today. I'm putting my Tlaxcaltec. I can eat about anything, man. And she gets mad because I do that, But I do it kiddingly because those are the parts that I have, okay? Emmy, I can't deny that fact, okay, by the research I've found. I'm going to touch a little bit on the land grant, okay? How many have been to Santa Fe? Quite a few, right? Kind of put yourself back in the 1750s, okay? 1750s. Santa Fe was split. There was segregation line, whether you liked it or not. All the poor people lived here in the Analco section. All the other people that lived on this side. Guess where the Tramperos came from? Analco section, the poor side, okay? Yeah. And there's always been segregation, unfortunately. It doesn't matter what ethnic group it is. But anyway, you had these people that live there, and they're thinking, man, we're stuck here in this poor side of town. And I know there's land grants out there. Well, it's that Juan Arguello said, I'm going to go out, hit him up for a land grant. And when I started doing my research, I said, how can a guy who's ex-Spanish soldier, a lower rank, in the Analco section get a land grant? Well, if you know your history, Sebastián Martín, who owned a lot of the land grants in that area, they called him Mr. Big at that time, his mother was an Arguello. Oh, man, Go figure, huh? Maybe she wasn't related to Juan de Arguello, but she had the Arguello name, okay? If you look at Sebastian Martin, his mom was an Arguello. Well, that's the only way that I think that Juan even got in, by talking to Sebastian. Somehow they were maybe related somewhat. Well, here goes Juan de Arguello going in asking Sebastian, I need a land grant. Help me. Let's go talk to Cachupin. Cachupin was the big guy, in charge of all the Santa Fe at the time. So Sebastian and Martin and Arguello go over there, and he says, well, I'll tell you what, Sebastian, if you give him part of your land grant, I'll think about giving him some of my, giving him a land grant, okay? So there's two parts to the Trampas land grant. The first one, I'm going to go real quick here. I'm going to go through all this. There's the picture of land grant. I'm going to go through real quick because I don't have very much time here, okay? I'm not going to go through all the people's names. I apologize, but I have to go real quick. Okay, what I did is I converted, with some other help with other men, I helped convert the Castilian, to Las Trampas land grant from Castilian Spanish to English. It's not perfect, but it's the best I could do, okay? So if you ever look at it, you say, this word's wrong, this word's wrong, tell me and I'll change it, okay, if it's legit, all right? But, all right, this is the first part. In 1751, I'm going to change it to the English side, okay? In the year 1751, grant and royal possession, donation, Sebastian Martin, favor. In other words, Sebastian Martin is saying, okay, I'm going to set up with the first part of land grant. Why do you think Cachupin wouldn't do it unless Sebastian did it? He wanted to see if Sebastian Martin was actually going to give these tramperos a land grant before he even gave anything up, And since Sebastian carried a lot of clout. He came from the Martin Serrano family, so they had a lot of clout. They were a pretty well-known, dominant family in New Mexico at the time. And I'm going to go through the land grant real quick, okay? In fact, I'm just going to wait and talk about it. There's two parts. This is the first part. The second part, okay, and Martin said, okay, here it is. I'm going to give it to Cachupin. And then Cachupin said, okay, I got it. And on the 15th in 1751, on the 15th of July, Cachupin did his part, okay? Now, once Sebastian did his part of land grant, do you think the people just stood back and said, well, let's see if Cachupin's going to do this? I believe they were already getting ready. They said, man, if Sebastian got clout, I'm going to start getting my horse. I'm going to sell what I have to sell. I'm going to get ready to go because we're going to get a land grant. I truly believe that they started getting ready the 1st of July once Martin signed that land grant, okay? I mean, if somebody was going to give you land and they said, okay, there's two parts, I'm going to sign this part, are you going to say, well, I'm going to wait for the second part? I think you're going to get a little bit ready and get your stuff going because the second part's coming. So I believe they were ready to go by the time Cachupin signed it in 1715. I'm going to go to Cachupin's, okay? Now, these are all the first parts in Spanish, okay, of Sebastian Martin's, okay, and it kind of pretty much, and then it's signed by Senor Lovato, okay, who was the guy who did all the scribes at that time. So that was Martin's part, okay? Come on. Okay. On the 15th, like I said, 1751, Governor Tomas Belis Cachupin issued and named it the Santo Tomás Apóstol del Río de Las Trampas land grant. And this is the Castilian part of it. Okay, there it is. There's in English. I'm just going to go real quick through this because I don't think I have a book that I'm finishing up. It's got the land grant and all the stuff that I'm talking about now. I only brought 4 or 5 because I'm working on a book, on my latest book here. I'm going to go real quick through this, okay? Apologize. Don't get mad at me. I'm on a timeline here, so I got to hurry. How many tramperos do we have in here? Quite a few. How many tromperos that carry the 12 families' names? Really? Leyva. Okay, the Leybas are prominent here. Have you done your DNA?
Yes,
What did it come out?
40% Native American.
No, did you go to the New Mexico project?
No.
Okay.
It's the Q183AC. the
See?
Native American.
See?
And I look like a white guy.
Yeah. when you do it to the New Mexico project to Angel Cervantes and Miguel, it just shows your why all the way through. It doesn't split it out. Okay, and that's a perfect example. Okay, J1, Q1. Anyway, but I'm gonna continue here real quick. And here's what I said. Immediately after it was signed, the families were ready to go. Man, they were biting at the bits, man. If somebody was going to give you this humongous land grant, man, I tell you, I'd be ready. I'd have my horse ready, my wife and everything all packed up, man. I'm ready to go, man. And they were all excited, man. They wanted to get going. Okay. I myself went from Santa Fe and drove, and I said, which route did they take, man? They had to have taken the high road or somehow or through Dixon. Nobody knows exactly, but like Miguel said, Santa Cruz de la Canada was kind of the central point for a lot of things. And I truly believe that's where they traveled to and stayed there and moved on up, okay? Because that's kind of a focal point, people traveling that way. So here they are. Let's go, man. Let's go, tromperos. 12 families with all their wagons and things. And, you know, they didn't have the sophisticated weapons we had now to fight off the enemy. They had probably bows and arrows, spears they made. Maybe Juan de Arguello, being a soldier, maybe picked up some atabus, you know, some gun weapons, you know, and spears and so maybe. We don't know. I'm just making an assumption. But they had to have something to protect themselves, okay? Here they're going into a land where Comanches, hostile Pueblo Indians. I'd be hostile too if they came and took my land. But anyway, here they come, okay? And here they traveled. Man, if you're a Leyva, like this gentleman, these other Leybas, man, can you imagine your Leyva, your Juan Francisco, and Eusebio Leyva with all their gear? Do you know that Eusebio and Francisco had land and sold some of their property in Santa Fe to accumulate some of the things they needed to get out here? If you read some of your history, you'll see that Twitchell has some documentation on the Leyva family having land in Santa Fe and selling it, okay, to get out here, okay? I'm not going to talk too much about the land grant. I'm going to get ready to close here because I know it's time. The land grant pretty much was taken away, okay, and it became part of the Kit Carson National Forest. I have a book over there that kind of goes into that history, okay? But I want to close with this. These dedicated Lopez family, this and Vigil family, and Romero, whatever family they are that are working on this church, I implore you guys and ladies that if you any way you can help them, monetarily, buying water for them, even showing up. I would like to see down the line, and I'm doing this because I believe my Juan de Arguello is going to tell me to do this, is to set a group of people to go over there and start helping them. It might start out small, but as time goes on, we can build it. Because if that church falls apart, if these dedicated people can't do it again, can never do it, and their children or can't do it, it's going to fall apart. Then we're going to depend on outsiders to come in and do it for us. I think it's a community church that when it was built, and that's what the 12 families wanted it for, to be kept as a tradition to show that we're still here. That New Mexico is part of the United States. It's not part of Mexico. It was at one time, of course. I didn't go into that. But when you go back east, people, you tell them you're from New Mexico, and they go, New Mexico? Is that part of Mexico? No, they don't know. But when they come out here as tourists and they see the church, our church, they know that we've been here for a long time. One last thing, I want to thank each and every one of you for sitting to this short presentation. I had a lot more, but I know because of time. You know, me, myself, as I go to the church, when I go to the Picoris Pueblo, I have this feeling that I've been there before. Not me personally, but I feel that my grandfather was there as I step in his steps. My grandmother was there. The Leyva men, Subio and Francisco, they gave their lives for that church. They fought against the Indians when they attacked. And when they attacked El Valle and overran El Valle, and they attacked Trampas, those two men gave up they died pretty close together. They were wounded. They died. We have people, our ancestors, that have died for that church, for that community. And anything that tries to come against it, we need to fight for it, okay? I just implore you to support the Lopez family, and I really applaud you for everything you're doing to continue this. And not just the Lopez, the Vigils, Romero, whoever, okay? And I thank you very much. I thank the people that allowed me, Sandra and everybody who allowed me to do this presentation. And next year, I hope we can do it bigger and better. And I thank you very much, and have a good day.